But even the superfluous ones make much ado about their death, and even the hollowest nut wanteth to be cracked. Everyone regardeth dying as a great matter, but as yet death is not a festival. Not yet have people learned to inaugurate the finest festivals. The consummating death I show unto you, which becometh a stimulus and a promise to the living. This is important. The consummating death. His death dieth the consummating one triumphantly, surrounded by hoping and promising ones. Thus should one learn to die, and there should be no festival at which such dying one doth not consecrate the oaths of the living. Now, when I think of the idea, when it strikes me, right, when I think of the consummating death, the death that through that death serves to bind together living people, I think of Romeo and Juliet, right? I mean, through their death, the Montagues and Capulets were able to put aside their differences and come together. Their death was a consummating death in this sense. But a sentence before, his death dieth the consummating one triumphantly, right? How do we die triumphantly? What does it mean to die a triumphant death? I don't think Romeo and Juliet died a triumphant death, right? But I can imagine, it's a great example? If you ever see The Wrestler, directed by Darren Aronofsky, that's a triumphant death, right? It's about a triumphant death. Thus to die is best. The next best, however, is to die in battle and sacrifice a great soul. So this is Nietzsche was always very fond of Vikings, right? The Roman Empire, these what he called master moralities, great warriors in history and such. But to the fighter, equally as hateful as to the victor, is your grinning death, which stealeth nigh like a thief, and yet cometh as a master. My death praise I unto you, the voluntary death, which cometh unto me because I want it. Right? Now, Zarathustra as a character is supposed to be the person who's beyond good and evil, right? He's supposed to be the person. Actually, I think he's really supposed to be the herald of the Übermensch, the person who announces the coming of the Übermensch. But my death, which cometh unto me because I want it, right? That's not an advocation of suicide, I don't think. I think that what he's saying is that death is something that interrupts life for all of us. It tends to be the case. It intrudes on us. It's something that we're scared about. It's something that, if there's anything in the world that we tend to see as involuntary, it's our own death. So, for somebody of great power, Nietzsche is very concerned with power, the will to power. The greatest power would be to pull everything into the realm of the voluntary, right? Everything happens because I will it to happen, right? This is a great will for Nietzsche, and that includes death. And that's what I think it is. I think that this is a statement about power rather than as like an advocating suicide, right? My death praise I unto you, the voluntary death, which cometh unto me because I want it, right? That's a statement that's made in the face of the whole populace who does not want to die, right? But death is an inevitability. So to not want the inevitable is problematic. Yes. So he's not saying I want to die, therefore I'm going to go kill myself. He's saying this thing is inevitable and I am strong enough to face it down and even to want it. Right. That's what I think is going on here. And when shall I want it? He that hath a goal and an heir wanteth death at the right time for the goal and the heir. So you have a goal, you have some higher cause, right, to die in the service of. And I don't mean higher cause as in some community that you place above the individual, but some higher cause. Remember, Nietzsche's a radical individualist, so some higher cause that you set for yourself and you plan and that you almost want to die in the service of. And out of reverence for the goal and the heir, he will hang up no more withered wreaths in the sanctuary of life. So the key here is the withered wreath, right? He's talking about the person who has outlived their usefulness. You know what's a great example, actually? Gran Torino. Watch Gran Torino. It's another good example. A person outlives their usefulness, and they live past their story. And so the wreaths that you hang in the sanctuary of life, right, these prayers that you give for life are empty because the life that you're living is over, even though you linger on, right? So to choose not to do that, right, to identify that, perhaps there is some way that I can die in some glorious way to advance some goal. That's what's interesting here. He talks about an heir also, and I always think of this. Makes me think of actually Christopher Hitchens. Christopher Hitchens talks about getting out of the way, right? He says part of my job as a father is to die, to get out of the way of my children. So that's what this makes me think of, right? Again, this could all be a very stupid reading, but I'm trying my best, right? Verily, right? That's a very New Testament language, right? Verily, not the rope makers will I resemble. They lengthen out the cord and thereby go ever backward. Many a one also waxeth too old for his truths and triumphs. A toothless mouth hath no longer the right to every truth. So truth for Nietzsche is constituted by power, right? Might be a controversial claim, but truth is constituted by power. So if you're old and you have outlived your usefulness, you don't have any right to truth for Nietzsche. Your truth, your perspective is irrelevant at a certain point. And whoever wanteth to have fame must take leave of honor betimes, and practice the difficult art of going at the right time. This, for me, is something this is not a statement that is purely about death, right? And I think perhaps you could look at the whole thing as not being purely about death, but more about knowing when to stop, right? You have a good thing, and then you have the foresight to be able to walk away at the right time. rather than continuing on. I mean, I've had relationships, for instance, that have continued long past when they should have, and it becomes a very unhealthy situation. And had I known to go at the right time, everything would be different. And it is a difficult art, right? End of part 2. Comment, subscribe.